know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Rights and Wrongs Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green. How are you? And thank you for tuning in to this edition as we have some stuff to talk about, including I pushed off on the previous episode to give myself a little bit of a talking break. But we have to at least run through the card of Evolution and how good or bad it was. Spoiler, it was good. And a few other little notes and tidbits around the world of women's professional wrestling before we go off into the, of course, review of WOW's latest episode. Generally speaking, I tend to wait some time, but since I am off work this particular week, when I wasn't watching it in the hub, I was like, I'm going to try to sit down and watch this show in my own time. And I will take my notes just like I will at work, and I'll just go ahead and do the review. And I got to be honest with you, I think by halfway into it, I was like, hey, I'm going to Arby's. I was like, I'll catch the rest of it later. I can't even explain it. I wish I had something that I could point at and to say, this one thing made me decide to get up and walk away. Well, there is something, and I'm sure I'll bring it up when I get into it. But yeah, the amount of times that I had to hear the names Nigel and David throughout the course of the show. But that's a whole different issue. Anyhow. Also, I guess before I go off into where I will be inserting all this, the news, views, and updates, as I'm recording this, Slammiversary has just gone off. Now, I'm not going to do, obviously, an entire review on Slammiversary, but there are some things that just need to be said about the relationship of WWE and TNA. All of those things and a little more, so let's get into it. It is time for the news, views, and updates. And what is happening out there? Well, first things first. Did you get the chance to watch Evolution? 7 years they waited before they got back to doing this event. 7 years, and it has come back around, and I thought they delivered. I thought they delivered a fun show. That crowd probably helped a lot because they were super into it. Now, of course, WWE events, they are generally speaking into it just altogether, but I was unsure about what Evolution was going to deliver in terms of how the fans were going to react to them. I knew certain people were going to get the reaction, like your top tier, no relation to the group, but the top level talent that they have on the roster, you knew that they were going to get some, the Rhea Ripley's and the Jade Cargill's, Belairs, so on and so forth. But this crowd was massively hot for this. At one point in time, I was concerned that they would get the bulk of the arena sold out, but they managed to do that. State Farm. And those matches pretty well delivered. I mean, top to bottom, they pretty well delivered. I have very little complaint. And the overall scope of the show. Now I want to take a second just to briefly go through it, because to do the full review of Evolution, I would not give it justice just slamming it in here, so it's got to be somewhat brief. First, the production value, magnificent, but I think we all expect that to happen, right? But this took place on the 13th, so this was the week prior to me doing this review right now. It opened up with B-roll of Atlanta. They put over the city. Yay for my city. And they give a nice opening video package. They gave you names of people that we identify as stars, past and present. And I thought that was a nice touch. It's something that most places do not have the benefit of, because there's not a lot of other places that have individuals that's been there that stood the test of time. Like WWE can go back into their vault and pull out, Leilani Kai and Wendy Richter and Alundra Blaze and Heidi Lee Morgan and, Bull Nakano, that they can grab all of those names and put them in a video package to show you one way or the other, whether you agree with the narrative that they're telling or not, the bulk of the stars that they've had on their program or programs, because they existed not just on Monday Night Raw, they existed back in the days with WWE Superstars and so on and so forth. So there was a good package on that. It was set to Katy Perry's Rise, and it set the tone. It was pretty much a music video. You know what I mean? And I forgot to mention, they also did like the star walk-up deal like they like to do. At the beginning of it, the segment ahead of that, they had footage of Bayley walking into the building and Becky Lynch walking into the building. Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, Stratton, Stratus. It made it, the voiceover on top of that made them feel important. I mean, they're coming in, beautiful championship belts, probably expensive shades, and they're overlooking the city and walking in the building and this, that, and the other. It gave them the sense of star power, and it didn't feel out of place, because it's not like this stuff was, hey, the show's 3 minutes, well, not 3 minutes, the show's an hour in and this person's just getting to the building. It wasn't anything ridiculous like that. It was people who were arriving to the building earlier, and our cameras were there to catch them. And we set this in front of it. We go to Joe Tessitore and Stephanie McMahon, and now this is one of the parts of it that I didn't agree with, because WWE narrative is always going to put that Evolution would not have happened if not for Stephanie McMahon. Whether that's true of the PLE or not, she's not largely identified as the reason that took place. Is on a good portion on the shoulders of the horsewomen. But of course they weren't going to go into that, so we move on. I will say that the crowd was hot for a lot of this stuff, especially when McMahon brought up the Cargill Naomi thing. It's one of the major personal issues on the show, and the only match on that show that did not have a championship on the line or singular. Everybody else, you're either getting a title shot or you are defending or trying to win a championship. So including the Battle Royal, that was for a number one contendership amongst the 20. Every other match, we got an IC championship match, NXT women's championship match, women's tag team titles match, the WWE women's championship match. Like I said, the 20 women battle royal, which is for the number one contender spot, and then the main event, which was the women's world championship match. And even if we exclude the fact that Naomi and Cargill was not for a specific championship, they both walked in with their, let's call them individual titles. Cargill coming off of the women's Queen of the Ring. Well, I guess that's pretty self-explanatory. It's got to be women's. And Naomi, of course, coming off of the Money in the Bank. So you had a lot of championships and high caliber people. It felt like it was high caliber. You started off with Bayley, Lyra Valkyria, and Becky Lynch. The crowd was up for that. Lots of moving parts in that match. And the commentators did a great job. Great job. Wade Barrett. I don't know if I've ever listened to him as intently as I did here, but he did a fantastic job. And I hate to start pointing the finger at WOW already, but it only served to remind me why their commentating drives me up the wall. You know why? Because I don't know if they had mentioned each other's names more than once or twice. Like, they didn't constantly sit there and let me tell you, Michael, and Michael, let me do this, and Michael, look at that. Michael, it didn't feel like that. It just was, they called the show and they treated it with a high level of respect. Anyway, moving parts in the triple threat. Becky Lynch comes out on top. She pins Bayley with a roll through that looked fantastic into a backslide. Would not expect somebody to win off a backslide, but she did. The next match, we're going to skip all the spots because WWE these days advertises and puts commercials up for everything. But getting past that, we go into the NXT Women's Championship match. This had extra stipulations on the line because who would win this match would then go on to Slammiversary, which just finished airing as I'm recording. And they would then face Masha Slamovich, the Knockouts champion versus champion, title for title. Jordynne Grace obviously being a former Knockouts champion. JC Jane walks in as the defending NXT Women's Champion, along with her group Fatal Influence. Say it right. Fatal Influence. They showed Grace getting aid from Blake Monroe earlier in the night to try to neutralize Fatal Influence. But at the end of that, Monroe takes out Fatal Influence with the, she gains the championship belt. I'm going to say she didn't take them out with the belt, but she did take out Jordan with the belt. Smacked her in the back, which set Jane up to hit her with a forearm shot for the pin. Boom, 1, 2, 3. Grace's lip seemed to be busted at that point. And you never want to see somebody hurt, but it was a great visual. Blake clearly has turned heel. And this sets Jane up to go into Slammiversary. Now we take a brief pause because as of now, Jane is now the Knockouts World Champion also. She won. Sorry. She came out on top in the champion versus champion match. And I wanted to say this about the relationship for NXT and TNA because I liked it initially. I truly did. But this nonsense has got to stop. They took what was a fun and nice thing and pretty much have told the world that TNA is not on the level of our developmental company. They can't win anything. Anytime it's come down to a top NXT talent versus even a middle of the road NXT talent up against a top TNA talent, NXT comes out ahead. I've only can recall maybe a random match here and there on the show where they beat somebody from their mid card or something like that, but TNA cannot overcome NXT under any circumstances. They just keep losing. I'm starting to wonder, what are they gaining from this? Yeah, they got some extra exposure, but holy crap, how many more times do y'all have to just get beaten? And not just that, I think the Trick remained the Knockouts champion. So you have two of their major championships, both being held by persons outside of that company, technically speaking. What is it going to take? You telling me not one of them could have won that night? Slamovich couldn't go over on Jane, or Santana or Henry couldn't win in a triple threat? I'm starting to not be enamored with this crossover anymore. It probably would have meant more if they had some level of success against them. I mean, and I mean names of value on the NXT roster, but they just do not get it. And I don't mean get it in terms of they don't understand. I mean, they don't get the wins. They just keep failing. And TNA has a very dedicated audience. They always have. But I certainly wouldn't want the company to just constantly be looked at as second best or just always underneath everything that the WWE does, because that's what it's starting to feel like. It's just starting to feel like if you put a TNA wrestler up against an NXT wrestler, well, you know who's going to win. I don't care how good the match may be, they're going down. So anyhow, JC Jane is now successfully defended that Evolution, and she is now the current reigning TNA Knockouts World Champion. Evolution continued on. Of course, they showed big stars in the crowd. That's one of their hallmark things to do, which, as we said at the beginning, they have names that they can reach for and have show up, and people will recognize them and understand them as being stars. And you can't fake that. Jazz, Ivory, Jacqueline, Maurice, Alundra Blaze, Leilani Kai, Tori Wilson, Melina, Molly Holly, they're all at varying points of the show shown in the crowd. We get to a tag team match with the Kabuki Warriors taking on, that's Asuka and Kairi Sane, taking on Sol Ruka and Zarya, taking on Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, taking on Rachel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez. Flair and Bliss are doing a little odd couple deal. And when I was watching this, I had to write down, I was like, Bliss' appearance only makes Daisy Lane look more like a pretender. I mean, it really does. Right down to the coming out with a bigger, better looking, even as ugly as that doll is, a bigger, better looking doll. And I don't care if somebody out there looks at Daisy Lane, well, she wasn't doing it to try to, maybe she wasn't, but it ain't gonna matter. If anybody looks at her, they are going to see one of two things, and I have said this numerous times also. She is either going to be looked at as Temu Alexa Bliss, or she's going to be looked at as a Harley Quinn knockoff. She is not going to be taken for being Daisy Lane. And that she doesn't do any sort of promo at all is only going to reinforce the fact that she's just a knockoff. Anyhow, good match. It was moving, like I said, with the triple threat, bunch of moving parts at certain points. Zarya got to show her power and all that good stuff like that. The Kabuki Warriors did some great tandem moves. Rodriguez, recognized as one of the powerhouses of the match, and lo and behold, how many people were in there that could stand up and be as tall as her? Not many. Charlotte is probably the only one that comes to mind, and I don't remember them standing face to face with each other at great length. It's amazing how you can make somebody look intimidating who's tall when you don't have them standing next to somebody who's supposed to be equally as tall. Her tag team partner Perez and her previous partner Liv Morgan, both shorter. They could be the mouthpiece, they could be the workhorse, and Rodriguez could be the power. Just food for thought. Not talking about anyone in particular. Yes, I am. Anyhow, Flair gives Perez a Moose-like spear. If you've ever seen Moose deliver a spear, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Flair saves Bliss from Zarya's spear later on. Rodriguez gets to do the powerhouse thing. She takes Bliss over the top, pretty much power bombs her onto the floor on top of the opponents waiting down there. And then she hits a Tejana bomb on Sol Ruca for the pin. 1, 2, 3. And Wade at least gave Sol Ruca like a way out in saying that she's, in so many words, he said that she was kind of overworked. Like she came off of the Bash and she was also the defending, what they call it, Speed champion. And she, dropping the fall here, gave her a little bit of a, well, you know, she's been burning the candle at both ends vibe. So good on Wade for that. That's why I say that the commentating here was magnifique. Yes, it was good stuff. Loved it. I wrote down, I'm an hour into the show. I don't think I've heard the commentators call each other by name once. That was the note that I put down. We go to another segment with Tessitore and McMahon. They're setting up for the Stratton match. And they keep the Liv Morgan story told. They also had some great graphics used. It was almost like the competitors were encased in gold. I mean, I wish I could describe it better, but that's how it kind of looked. This Stratton Stratus, I have to try to say that correctly, match basically told the old line versus young. You know, I didn't want to use the term old because I think Trish she moved great and she wrestled great, looked great out there. And it was somewhat built around Stratton not being able to get a handle on Trish initially. The ring announcing, I forgot to mention that, by Alicia Taylor. I had long said that I like the big match feel when it's appropriate. And this match and the main event were matches, and she did it other times, but those two in particular were the ones that I liked. Those matches got the big fight feel. I mean, you know, kind of like, she didn't say this, but I'm giving you an example. In this corner, weighing in at such and such from Miami, Florida, you know, so and so. It was along those lines. And if you didn't see it, it looks very cinematic at certain points in the show. Particularly when they got to these sections where we're doing the big fight intro. It's like they went and used either different cameras or cameras with different lenses on them. In movies, you apply those cameras for depth of field. By that, for those who are asking, the foreground looks very clean. It looks very sharp. You can, especially when you get to the main event, you'll know what I'm talking about if you go back and you watch it. When they step up for the introductions, like Rhea Ripley looks very clean. And behind her, the field is soft. You can see the people, but it's just out of focus. Same thing when, you know, here and Io Sky and so on. So it had a different feel to it. Now, they obviously couldn't do that for the duration of the match because it would look weird. But cinematic look gave it a different flavor as they were doing what they were doing. Back to the Stratton match. Tiffany Stratton, trying not to fumble those. Tiffany Stratton somewhat became the de facto heel in this equation because people love Trish. You know, and as they should. But Stratton was able to escape and kick out of the two big Trish moves. Kicks out of the chick kick, kicks out of Stratisfaction, and Stratton pins Trish with the prettiest moonsault ever. And it looked like the referees was like, all right, we need to get you out of here. She went up there and kind of got her by the arm and walked her out. And I think that was just to give Trish a moment, because the chance of thank you Trish started. And the commentators also kind of alluded to, you never know when this match is the last match. Is this the moment where she gives it up or quits or, retires ultimately? She's not an active full-time wrestler, obviously, but she does pop back in from time to time, and she does have these moments in matches from time to time. But the story there was, will she be doing it again? And that's fair. I thought that all of that was very fair and lovely to watch. Trish did a great job. The grudge match, no holds barred grudge match, Naomi and Jade Cargill. This may very well be the best work of Naomi's career. That is the first line that I wrote. I mean, following Belair comes out with gets a great ovation, but I wrote, side note, Naomi may be doing the best work of her career. She looked the part. She didn't look like she was playing. She didn't look like she was pretending. She looked like she believed in who she was, and I loved it. I was there for it. They didn't have to go 100 miles an hour. Cargill looks like an absolute star. I mean, she's chiseled out of granite. But she looks like an absolute star. That both of them kept a nice, moderate pace. So even though this was a hardcore match, they made it so that everybody understood what was going on. Even Naomi's outfit looked great. Until Wade had brought it up, I didn't realize that she had a bunch of razor blades. And now I'm sure those were non-sharp razor blades, but I didn't realize she had a bunch of razor blades hanging off her outfit. But it does fit the narrative. Caution. So I was like, hey, good. Somewhere in here, Naomi got her nose busted, and she wiped her bloody nose in Jade's hair. I was like, man, Naomi is becoming one of my favorites right now. I enjoyed her when she was Knockouts champion, because if we're going to break her career from that point to here, like, we had the glow before she left WWE. She goes to TNA. She kind of never really got recognized as like this workhorse champion, but she had to wrestle. And she did a good job of that. And we got to see her in a different environment, including Arena Mexico. I think she also had a mixed tag against Chick Tormenta. Her and Sabin. I forget who Tormenta was tagged with. And then she comes back to WWE, which is basically picked back up with the glow thing until she turned heel. And now look at her go. Look at her go. And the fact that she lost even before the outcome of the night did not bother me at all. I thought they were doing great. And not a lot of unnecessary stuff. Didn't toss people through light tubes. Didn't know jabbing somebody in the head with pig stickers and endless chairs or chains and knuckles and tables. It just wasn't a bunch of those. The few things that they did were effective. They didn't have to do a bunch. The angst of the story was the issues between the two of them, and that carried it. It carried it so much to the point that the hardcore things became an add-on, and it helped illustrate the anger and the just the viciousness that they had towards each other. It helped play that out, but it wasn't as necessary as just a cold hardcore match for the sake of having a hardcore match. Anyhow, and you knew that had to be just a improv moment. You get that just out of experience. Wipe my nose in your hair. Wipe the blood in your hair. I applauded in my living room. I sat there like I applauded her. But Jade wins with the Jaded off the top rope. through the table, boom, and she gets her win. 1, 2, 3. That should theoretically be the blow off of the Cargill Naomi feud. We get the 20-woman battle royal featuring Nikki Bella, Chelsea Green, Piper Niven, Izzy Dame, Tatum Paxley, Ivy Nile, Natalia, Maxine Dupree, Candice LeRae, Jada Parker, Kalani Jordan, Julia, B-Fab, Meechin, Zelina Vega, Alba Fire, Lola Vice, Nia Jax, and Lash Legend and Stephanie McCoy. Nia Jax. Lash looks like a force to be reckoned with. I did not realize how much bigger she was than everybody else in that ring. But she fit the powerhouse role. And holy cow. It was a fun little watch. They had a couple of spots in there that I was like, well, you knew they just had to do that just because they had to do it. Like we'll call it the Kofi Kingston spot. I got to do something to get myself back in the ring because I'm not eliminated. And I wish I had written down the young lady that did that. Gosh, yeah, I should have wrote that. Should have put a note by it. But if you go and check it out, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. The young lady that walks on her hands from the commentating desk across the floor, back to the ring, hooks her feet on the ropes, and does the sit-up to get back in it. All of this was enjoyable. It comes down to Stephanie McCoy and Lash Legend, and she being McCoy eliminates Legend to win. And one of the big notes that I put down here is that the Devil's Kiss, which is a pretty simple move, and not just a simple move, a move that I've seen a number of times over. Oh my gosh, what was Pandora was doing that here like 10 years ago. We didn't call it the Devil's Kiss, but it's the same thing. Rolling them over, getting it, and ramming your opponent's head into the mat with your knees. But that move is over. Like they have conditioned the audience that this is an over move. It is everything I've asked for. The audience has to know. They have to understand that the moves mean something. And she got that thing over. Bravo to her. The promo, talking about how important it is to have your people speak because they want to believe in you. Stephanie McMahon comes in after the match and she gives sets her up for the interview segment. And she asks her a question in Spanish. Tells her up front, it's like, look, just bear with me because I'm going to try to ask you this in Spanish. And she delivers. And then Vacour answers in Spanish, but then she goes into English and more or less says in a heartfelt way, English is my second language, but wrestling is my first. And you cannot fake people's heart in these environments. Say what you will about wrestling. Say what you will about it being a work. Say what you will about it being fake. I don't use that term. But say what you will about all of those things. A lot of times those promos matter. Because whatever they're feeling inside in general can bleed itself out in front of those people. And they will know. Especially when it comes off and it sounds genuine. And even the moment where Stephanie McMahon, she's done this thousands of times. I'm pretty sure she could fake it if she had to. But even the moment when she raises her hand and shows off to the audience, like, yeah, she's the number one contender and she's gonna get a challenge for a match at SummerSlam or Perth or whatever it is. It felt like a sincere moment, especially coming off of Vacour's promo. Yes, it wasn't a sharp, witty promo. English is not a first language. She made that very evident to the audience, but it felt sincere, and that's all they needed. The fans understood it. It's amazing how far you can go when you have somebody that is able to do that and get their point across. I've only begged for another company to allow their people to speak for 3 goddamn years. Anyhow, moving on. The main event. This, I'll just say right off the top, the highest compliment that I could give it is that I would have paid to see these two. And right now, if they were going to headline a pay-per-view somewhere and I had to buy it, I probably would. They worked very well together and deserved that main event spot. I mean, they set this up, the commentators did, as a rivalry. And they also painted the picture that it's the story being told in the ring. Rhea Ripley has never beaten Io Sky. And they're asking, hey, is it just a case of this person just has your number? And they told that story in the ring between the two of them. This is one of those cases where the time needs to be given for that to come across. Rhea Ripley tries to go for something. Io Sky finds a way out of it. She gets a little bit of an advantage, but then Io takes it back. They were able to give you the story of Io Sky has got her figured out more or less through that, just through the body language. And then you get to the other half of that where it's just frustration. And Rhea Ripley is not just going to beat her as badly as she can. Referee takes a big bump. Jessica Carr took a big bump. And not just a big bump, she took a believable bump. She got springboard drop kicked by Io Sky and knocked out of the ring. Now, Jessica Carr was a wrestler some years ago. She used to be known as the exclamation point Kennedy Brink. I had an interview with her several years back, and I was a fan of her work at that time. So it didn't surprise me that she would be in line to take a bump for the benefit of the match. But because we got that bump in the middle of the match, they were able to have, we'll call it the unofficial hardcore segment. They didn't really break out weapons and whatnot, but they were able to just go out through the crowd, spend some time, walking through certain areas, jumping off of, not scaffolding, but it was like a staging area. Io Sky did this high cross body from what appeared to be 15 to 20 feet up to the floor, well, to Rhea Ripley on the floor. And things like repeated forearms in the match by Sky when they were facing off each other got that crowd going. I cannot begin to tell you, if you haven't seen it, this is one of those matches I'm going to say go out of your way and watch it. It was a very enjoyable match, and not just enjoyable because the commentators treated it seriously, because it was framed seriously, because it was for a championship that they treat with absolute reverence and respect. Now they do, because they're trying to keep that thing elevated. Because all of those elements came together, it was just a wonderful thing to watch. And it went on to the point where it felt like they are not going to beat each other, or who's going to mess up first. Cue the music. Both of them went down after a top rope Spanish fly, basically knocked them both out. The music plays. It's Naomi. Crowd erupts. She comes down, hits Io Sky with the case after cashing in, obviously, and then tosses Rhea out. Springboard moonsault on Io. She gets the win, big pop. Naomi wins the championship, goes off the air with the thing. I felt like this is one of the better shows I've seen this year. And I will repeat, if there was a match that Sky and Ripley, because I didn't think they were going to be that solid, if they were going to do that match again and I had to pay for it, the biggest compliment that I can give them is that I would be willing to pay. It very much struck me like a Ring of Honor match from the early 2000s. We're talking pre-Tony Khan, before he bought that thing. But it struck me as very much like a Ring of Honor match, where like Joe and Punk or Nigel and Daniel Bryan, it like those type of matches where it was just exchange, move, counter move. If you're into that type of match, go check it out. Okay. Now I've given it as much praise as I can give, and I didn't want to stay on that thing forever, and I wanted to make sure that I talked about JC Jane winning the Knockouts Championship. Not really happy about that, but you know, what can you do? They're just gonna bend the knee to WWE as much as possible, I guess. They don't want to make them upset or ruin their relationship, I suppose. Well, time will tell what they're going to do. I can only assume that they're going to maybe turn those around by Bound for Glory. I can't. If they keep losing that Bound for Glory, then there's a problem. And they got a problem now, but it's going to be a real big problem then. But we'll wait till October. Maybe something to happen before then. Side note, there's a young lady on the Indies who I have enamored with her gimmick. Becca, or B3CCA. If you haven't seen her, go find her. And I'm not even talking about the matches. I'm just like her Instagram. She is so committed to the gimmick of being this ludicrous, delusional pop star. I have just begun to love this thing. She's got on a little song, and then you go out to her Instagram. She has these posts that are almost like she's created tabloids for herself and these news articles for us. So like Becca sold 3 trillion downloads or what, just ridiculous stuff. Her albums, her being on the bus, singing her way to the ring, talking about a tour. I mean, I love the commitment. I do. I love the commitment that she's putting on there. If you're out there, Becca, don't change. Don't change until you're good and damn ready to do it. How she is not on somebody's show right now is unless I find out something else that would make her difficult to work with or something, or she just isn't good in the ring. If she's terrible, then that would explain it. But I've only seen 1 or 2 matches, and I didn't see anything wrong with those matches that I saw. But how she is not on somebody's programming right now is a crime, especially when she is made for television. If I had a show and I had a budget, I'd hire her right now. And I'd bring her in to just be who you are. We will work something around this pop star gimmick. This thing needs to be done. Anyhow, I just wanted to take a little moment to briefly bring that up. But if you want to see who it is I'm talking about, B3CCA4, number 4, ever. Find that and you can check out her Instagram and see what kind of nonsense she's up to right now. So, on that, we will get ourselves prepared as I get my other notes in front of me so we can talk about this latest edition of WOW Wrestling. So, we're going to take the break and we'll come back. It'll be off to reviewing WOW and his latest episode and championship match.
Cut my music. Yeah. I'm not ready yet. Citizens of Dreamwave, the international pop sensation B3CC you a little something that I learned on tour. Tour is very hard. You know, sometimes they don't have the snacks that I asked for in my locker room, in my green room. You know, sometimes I'm a little tired before I perform and it sucks. It's just really hard. You wouldn't understand. So let me just say something really quick. Children, I want to inspire you here. If you can dream a little dream and hope a little hope, one day your sad, pathetic, small town dreams might come true. Probably not, but they might. And now I'm going to inspire you here with my song! We're about to get vile.
And we are back. And it is time for our review of WOW. And here's the opening slate. The air date, July the 19th. The episode number 345. Season 3, episode 45 for them. Title, Picket Line Playbook. And the chronological number 149. It began with the Alliance opening up the show. They looked good, but I had to question why were they there, especially following the promo. Gambino gets on the mic and basically says that Reina Del Rey, let me rewind this a little bit. It doesn't matter who's going to win the main event. She puts over the main event because Reina Del Rey gets the first shot at the title. And I wrote, how? Is that all it takes to get a shot? I have no issue with any member of the alliance. I've spoken highly of them. But WOW is wildly inconsistent. Why is it? A couple of weeks ago, just this four-way. The four-way that they talked about following this thing was set up for the number one contender because at the time it was like, well, it's the only way that we could determine the number one contender. We have to have this four-way, which was never explained. It was never talked about. It was like, why do you need a four-way? So he just did it. But here in this opening segment, with no apparent explanation and no rhyme or reason, Reina Del Rey just gets a title shot. I was like, is that all it takes? Then what was all these months of jumping through hoops of it's a number one contenders match, it's another number one contenders match. Well, this number one contenders match didn't count. We have to do another number one contenders match. What the fuck was all of that about? If we were just going to turn around and be like, all right, I got dibs. And then not only does she say that, he follows it up. David McClain sat there and on camera says she gets the shot. Like, why? And I like Reina. I like all of them, but why? This doesn't make it is 2 minutes into the show. It already didn't make any sense. So you can already tell what I'm feeling about this episode just off the rip. And I need to just say, no, it's nothing with anybody's match or performance or anything along those lines. Far from it. In fact, nearly every match and every person that I saw that competed in this episode, I was fine with. And I enjoyed the match. But the narrative, the story, the commentary, all of that stuff, I was like, this is so awful. This is what it took. Just walking out there and saying, I have first dibs. So what's going to happen the next time we got somebody, which you know is going to happen, where they say, I deserve a title shot, and be like, well, you got to earn it. Why? What should they have to earn? If Reina gets a title shot solely based on Adriana Gambino walking out and saying, we want one, why should anybody have to earn anything? Matter of fact, why did the Brat Pack not get a tag team title shot? They should just say we're in line and then get it. Wildly inconsistent is WOW. So they do that. And then we have the recap of the four-way match. And you can tell that the editors here playing around with their new graphics. This is to set up Tormenta's main event shot later on in the night. That's all well and good. Before we go any further, I think it should be also noted that as of right now, Adriana Gambino is one half of the NWA Women's Tag Team Champions. That's right, as her alter ego, or I guess name that she goes by on the indies, Valentina Rossi, probably saying that wrong, I apologize. But she's one half of the tag team champions right now. She's already 115 days into that reign as of this recording. It makes me wonder, it's like, well, that puts her in a fairly prominent position on NWA's television, regardless that they don't really have TV, but it puts her in a fairly prominent position there. Does that mean that she might be iffy about coming back? It doesn't say that she's not going to, but if she's there and she's tagged up with, I can never say her name right, Tiffany Neves. I don't know why I can't get that out, but anyhow, as TVMA, that is the name of the team. But if they are running around the NWA right now and they are the women's tag team champions, I would imagine that would make that promotion the priority. I would also say that about their main event participant, Tormenta, who we know, as we saw in Worlds Collide, is part of AAA. Would that intervene with her showing back up? I can only assume that if she's part of AAA, that is going to be the priority. Because there's no real reason. I don't know what she stands to gain off of going to WOW. Other than I can get a paycheck for doing a weekend of work that'll show me off for a month or two. It's just food for thought. Just something to dwell over. But anyhow, we get past the video package recapping the 4-way and talking about or setting up at least the main event. And then we go to our next segment. That is my lovely Sylvia Sanchez taking on Gabriella Cruz. I got something in this match that I did not expect to happen whatsoever. Sanchez delivered the goods somehow. I'm like, what is happening here? The world is topsy-turvy. Their rules are just flipping. Zane gives some background on Gabriella Cruz and talks about her wrestling pedigree, for lack of a better term. But he also reminds everyone that she lost her first match. I was like, both of them did. And in my mind, I was like, I'm not sure if that's what I would want to do. I mean, just depending on what it is I'm wanting to get out of having her there. But she came up short in the first one. Well, but I can't really fault him for that because most times WOW could be really good about recreating their own history or just flat out ignoring things. So I can't be mad that he actually brought up or talked about something that actually took place. It is what happened. She did lose her first match. I'm just not sure, and this is just me, I'm just not sure whether it's something I would have brought up at this point. During this match, because it wasn't really a match of any major significance, let's be honest. It was a cold match, but nothing wrong with a cold match. Those have to be there. But as this is going on, Zane brings up Big Rigs and Bourbon being cleared to wrestle. I wrote down from what? Being hit in the head with cardboard signs, like, give me a break. It's those moments like that make me really, truly question WOW. But Sanchez looked good. In fact, they looked good together. And if this were going to spawn off a rivalry or a feud or a series of matches under normal circumstances, I would say, bring it on. This could probably be good. I just don't know whether they would do that, and I would doubt that it would be presented in some sort of competitive fashion. However, surprisingly, Sanchez pulled off the win. She gets Cruz up in the Alabama slam position, slings her down, and then that was it. 1, 2, 3. I was shocked because I fully expected Sylvia to lose. Well, she's lost so many times already. But here she won, and I was happy that she won. I wanted Sylvia to win. I've been wanting her to win. My only issue is kind of the same issue that I had, about a podcast or two ago, when the Alliance got into the ring with the returning Spice of the Mighty Mites and the surprise partner Holiday, both of which were completely unnecessary, particularly the surprise partner. But I said then about that match, I'm happy the Alliance won, but of all the matches, should they have won this one? Of all the matches that they had, this is the one that they won? And that's what I felt here with Sanchez. Like, I like that she has a win. I wanted to see her do well in the company. I like Sanchez, but was this the match that she needed to win? Gabriella Cruz is the one that they just brought in. And WOW has a bad habit, except for a select few, of making sure that anybody they hire on loses 4, 5, or 6 times before they actually get any sort of win underneath them. And by that time, it may be too late. See people like Ashley Blaze and Sierra Breeze, when they have to lose repeatedly before they get any sort of win. And then by the time they start doing anything, I was like, what would you believe in them for? They have been shown to be losers, at least within that environment. And we're not talking about the person. We're talking about the persona that they portray on TV. They have not been presented in the best light. So it's hard to get behind them when you don't have any reason to get behind them. I mean, no one likes backing a loser. Even if you talk about like your local sports team, there are people out there who are considered ride or dies, and they will follow their team to the bitter end. But you know what probably happened before they got there? There's better memories of them somewhere. They've seen them win somewhere, or they've seen them get close. They got emotionally invested. Something along those lines happened before they just decide to be a ride or die. And you can get that same thing in pro wrestling too. If you have an emotional connection to that particular individual, or they have enough equity in their credibility bank, they can lose and not really lose favor with the audience. See Trish Stratus. We just talked about that with her at Evolution. She lost. When was the last time you seen Trish win a big match? She's been basically coming back to put people over. Same thing that John Cena did prior to him winning his championship. He lost for 3 years. Maybe longer than that. I might be off. But he lost over and over and over again. And the thing that kept people believing in him or wanting to see him is that he can talk his ass off and he's John Cena. He has credibility already built into him. You ain't getting that with Gabriella Cruz right now because she was at the starting line at her debut. But now she's walked backwards. That's probably the best way I could illustrate that point. Instead of being at the starting line and then getting a good jump start into, okay, I might be able to get Gabriella Cruz, the wrestler, over, she's been pushed backwards a couple of feet. Now, can she come back from this? Sure. Will she come back from this? Maybe. But will WOW make her come back from this and present her as some kind of a star? Probably not. Next segment is the promo for the tag team match of the Environmentalists versus Big Rigs and Bourbon, followed by the match itself. The Environmentalists, Scout Parker and Sprout Greens, taking on Big Rigs and Bourbon, Jesse Jones, and Big Rig Betty. Zane McClain talk about Big Rigs and Bourbon getting hit with signs. I like these signs look cheap and like they could barely hurt anybody or anything. If you're not a fly or a mosquito, I'm not sure that you should be under any threat by these cardboard, terrible, child-made Earth Day projects that they have walking out there with. I mean, that just look ridiculously bad. And I know I said it before, it's like, but you couldn't take the time to go to an arts and crafts store and find something else. It looks like they just dug around in that place, found 2 cardboard boxes or maybe just one, and just cut it into a sign like, oh yeah, just use this. It's those things that make it look segregated. And then to tell the narrative that that's what they got hit with. There are days when I just feel entirely bad for Jesse Jones being in WOW. And this was one of them. Because she had to put that nonsense over. Well, and what picket line? Why is it? All right, let me not get worked up. Anyhow, let me just talk this back a little bit. So the story that's told is that the environmentalists were protesting. So my first thought is, what exactly were they protesting? Because it would have had to have been near or around that building. So what is it that they were protesting and what kind of protest was this? It clearly wasn't a bunch of people. It was like, what, just the two of them walking around yelling about nothing? And no footage of this and no sign of the attack. None of these things took place. They just had to talk it up. And then we got these concussions. I was like, boy. The things they have to do to try to get it over. They talk about having these concussions and that they'll be cleared in 2 weeks to be able to have the match that we're about to watch. Why did this even happen? First off, Greens has been gone protesting for months. So she just walk back in there and just start another protest just for the sake of doing it? And what is it that they're protesting? Why? It's just, it's ridiculous. And then as they come out, McClain yells about Jones and Riggs. Well, that's not when they come out. That's in the middle of the match. We'll get to that. But McClain is basically defending the environmentalists protesting wherever it is and whatever it is that they're talking about. And, of course, that wasn't the point of what Zane was saying. Like, well, they shouldn't have protested. They have a right to protest. Like, okay. I can never understand, is he trying to be a heel announcer or is he trying to be a babyface announcer? Because he's clearly not unbiased. He's never been unbiased. He just flip-flops back and forth between the two. But I'd always assumed that he was a babyface announcer. This does not lend itself into that, but we will move on. So environmentalists out there with the cheap signs. Big Riggs and Bourbon come out, and Jesse Jones is carrying her big stick. More on that later. And they start up, and this is where McClain starts yelling about Jesse Jones and Big Rig teaching them what it's like to smoke and fish and drink. I was like, what the hell is that? Any of that have to do with this match? What does any of that have to do with this match? How is punching you in the mouth teaching you what it's like to smoke, drink, and fish? Jesse Jones, Jesse Bell, Amazing Maria, a.k.a. Big Rig. If you can hear me, I'm sorry. Scout Parker, if you can hear me, I am sorry. I guess I'll extend one to Sprout too. But, I mean, honestly, if I was Scout, I was like, just leave me in the singles. She's been gone for months. If she wasn't important enough to be around for me to be in a tag team at that time for the 2 months that I've been wrestling by myself, then I didn't need her then. I don't need her now. Just put me back in the singles. But anyhow, yeah, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Because it puts the environmentalists in just a nonsensical feud, because that's what it feels like it's going. And this is like the third or fourth time that Jesse Jones has had to be involved in some angle that started from nowhere. The first one I remember being, and I have never seen this take place in wrestling another day, is only happened in the WOW, and I didn't think it was possible. But they had the start of a feud that happened in the middle of the feud and blew off that day. Like, how does that even work? If you don't know what I'm talking about, that was back when, who was Jesse tagging with? It was Amber Rodriguez, before she became the fashionista and became the second partner of Gigi. And she and Jesse Jones and her then partner, I can't remember who it is off the top of my head right now, got attacked in the back in an angle we never saw. And they came for revenge, and then they won that day. And then it was over. It was done. The angle started right in the middle and ended. I was like, I've never seen this before. That's impressive. It's impressively bad, but it's impressive. She also had a tag team championship that just pretty much got wiped out of existence. How Jesse Jones remains happy and comfortable with WOW, and sometimes I'll never know. because of things like this. But anyhow, let's move on to the match. But this was another angle that no one could see. Nobody saw this attack take place, so we're just bound to the words of David McLean and Nigel Zane that, oh, yeah, this happened. So we have to just run with that. And the promo that Big Riggs and Bourbon did like 2 weeks ago to try to get this thing over. We just fast forward right on through this. At the end of the match, Big Rig Betty runs around the ringside to yank Scout Parker off the apron. Gets into the ring, hits Big Riggs and Bourbon, hit their little tandem move for the finish. And then 1, 2, 3, they pin Sprout Grings. As they're celebrating in the ring, the heels steal Jesse Jones's stick. They see it and at least take the time to like, hey, not just stand there like there's a force field around them. They get out of the ring and chase after them. This, my initial thought, I was like, why is that thing important? And to his credit, Zane tried to make the stick important. Given to her by Tracy Smothers, but McLean talked through it mostly. So I'm not sure if that got across the way that it should have. The only other problem that I have with that is that it's never been addressed. She's been carrying that thing around for months. At what point have they ever said that, well, this is the stick that Tracy Smothers gifted her, that anybody gives you shit, you hit him in the head with this, whatever story that you got attached to it to make it come off like, some important piece of memorabilia for it, do that. But we've not heard that before. Never. And we're talking, 7 months into the year? So she's been at least a good 7 months walking around with that thing. At least. I'll say 6 just to be on the safe side. And at no point has anyone ever brought it up or said it or she's shown it or whatever. Like anything to make it have some value. Now, I know some people out there, are going to look at that like, well, it's a stick. You can't get that thing over it. Now, I am of the belief that given the right circumstances, you can make an item feel valuable on TV, at least valuable and important to that person. CM Punk got over some cheap beads on camera as something that he really wanted and cherished. Because why? It's got my dog's name on it. It's given to me by my wife. Yeah, of course, in his own way, he talked it up to where it was important to him. So important that the heel had to take it and parade it around. It's important to me now. And you believed it. It was like, hey, man, I got to get that thing back. That was his championship. He didn't need a championship belt. That was a personal issue, and they took a plain item and turned it into something that was worth fighting for. So it's not that they can't get this stick over given the time, the effort, the promo. My concern is that they won't. Because just like here, most of what you heard is David McLean, they took the stick. Nigel tries to explain, hey, well, yeah, that's the stick that was given to her by her mentor, Tracy Smothers. But he had to squeeze that in like 20 seconds, and David McLean was still talking. So I don't know. The next segment, Sibley Scoles and Animal Instinct. And they are back together. And they are back in bad pun and cartoon mode. And I was like, oh, boy. I was all right with them when they were separated. But they're like the two kids in class that, when they're around each other, they cannot help but start goofing off. They're good kids on their own, but collectively they're clowns. That's the feeling I get with Animal Instinct. On their own, they might be fine. Collectively, they're clowns. But we can move on from that. Scoles was better here than usual. Still had an eye line looking someplace else, but the questioning was much better. And it came across more so as the wrestling interview segment. I mean, that's the best way I could put it. It did deliver on that. So I had to applaud Sibley Scoles in this instance. Maybe somebody smartened her up to it. Like, hey, why don't you try this? I don't know. But the response that Animal Instinct, they have to, they got to talking animal puns and they got to be in full-blown character mode and stuff like that. So, yes, whereas I do acknowledge that they're probably better than I would give them credit for, generally speaking, I do feel like, unless I see more of them and it changes my mind, but I do feel like I like these two better in a singles environment rather than the team. Because it almost forced them to have to just be the wrestler, opposed to being in an environment where they will feed off each other with this dog-cat nonsense. So we go to the next segment, and that is Animal Instinct versus the Mighty Mites. First thing I wrote here is the breakup rumor angle supposed to go somewhere? Because it didn't feel like it. Now, they still might, and there's still a window of opportunity to address it. But it just didn't feel like it was anywhere in the purview of this environment. The end could open it up. Or the finish of the match, it could open it up. But that, the rumors of Animal Instinct breaking up, like he started off with that. With rumors that, much like angles, we never saw. We never heard. It's not like they even said, hey, a story broke on our website and it's Animal Instinct. Are they done? Or something to help facilitate these rumors that they alleged to have happened. But it was just the words of the commentator, the words of David McLean. So they brought that up on commentary, and I just wrote question marks, or drew them, I should say. And the match, I like the Mites. As you well know if you listen to this show, I like the Mites. I still do not think that they need both names. Both names being Sugar and Spice, the Mighty Mites. I think they should either be the Mighty Mites and have different names, or they should just be Sugar and Spice. They don't need both. It just sounds like, and if I can borrow the phrase, just sounds like a hat on a hat. Most people, when they hear the term Sugar and Spice, associate that as the name anyway. And I'm not talking about them per se. I'm just saying when people hear Sugar and Spice, that kind of stands out on its own. They could have just had the graphic of that made with the both of them. It didn't have to be Sugar and Spice, the Mighty Mites. The Mighty Mites just brings attention to the fact of something that you can see quite visibly. They're short. But they're talented, and that's what counts. And I support the Mites. I would have liked to have seen them having somebody that they can work with a little better on the show, but maybe they'll come around to that. Animal Instinct did not do bad here. I do not want to take away from their working ability. I think that, to be fair to them, I think that they try very hard. But it's another case in my mind. Well, it's kind of twofold. One, I think that they are being asked to be better than what they are. Now, that's certainly not to say that they're bad, because they're not. In in-ring work, WOW has certainly put people on the air that are far worse than either one of them are probably capable of doing. And that is a high praise out of me. Collins, I think, tries very, very hard. She just needs to be in a different environment where she can flesh all of these things out, rather than being on television where she's supposed to be a polished act already. Now, she's very close to that, but I still don't think that she's nearly as polished as she could be. Same thing with Jinx. Not as polished as she could be. She's just somebody who was given a character and then learned to work around that character. Playing it with Collins. But in the match, I forgot this note that I have here. Before we go to what the finish was, I had to make sure I wrote this down. Is that David McClain says, week after week, WOW brings the best women's wrestling. I was like, and it's just probably bad timing for that statement, for me at least, because I'm watching this following the week of that Evolution pay-per-view at the PLE. I was like, WOW has some really talented young ladies there, but I don't know if any of them had the opportunity to really deliver the goods in an environment that would allow them to deliver the goods like that PLE did for its women. And having seen that, I just thought to myself, I realized that he has to put the show over, and he has to put the talent over, and he has to put the promotion over, and I use promotion loosely. But he cannot possibly believe that. He cannot possibly believe it. And it probably was not good for me in terms of how I would be able to digest the show, particularly as main event, following looking at Ripley versus Sky. Cash in aside. Just the match in and of itself up until the last 2 minutes of it makes it very difficult to turn around and watch WOW and hear them harp on about, this is amazing, the stuff like that, after having seen what I would consider a legitimately amazing match. Or at least a top level, excellent, whatever, however you choose to describe it. It became a little bit more difficult for me to accept it. Me already having, I don't want to say issues, but me already not particularly caring for the persona of the Classmaster probably did not help. So anyhow, that was just a random statement that he made throughout the course of this match. The match ends when Sugar becomes legal and Collins puts her down with a spine buster. All right, she catches her, spins around a little bit, does like a modified spine buster, rolls out of the ring to go help her partner who's been beaten up on by Spice. She gets Spice off and picks her partner up, who is the legal person, and puts her into the ring. Then Collins proceeds to attack Spice to hold her off. The logic there was pretty flawless. I honestly didn't have any sort of beef with that. Normally you have something that takes place there and you'd ask like, well, what the hell did she do that for, right? But this was not one of those cases. I did not feel like there was an obvious hole in her decision making. It seemed like a good idea. I stopped the legal person, my legal opponent in the ring. I go out and I help my partner, and I prevent my opponent from getting in to stop the pin. So under those circumstances, you could see / understand the decisions within Goldie Collins' universe. It looked like she grabbed and shoved Jinx into the ring, but, it's helping her partner out. The partner's legal. And her partner was the one that was going to be counted out had she not got her in there. But once she got her in, Sugar had recovered, saw her, ran across, grabbed her by the hair with like a face buster or a face plant. And then she gets the pin 1, 2, 3 while Collins is beating up on Spice on the outside. So it all fit. I cannot say that this wasn't a good match for them. Regardless of what I may think about the unit of Animal Instinct or the name of the mites and this, that, and the other, regardless of any of that stuff, I cannot say that how this was laid out at the end did not make sense to me. And I was expecting, like, well, why did they do that? Or what is this for? I was expecting one of those moments. Didn't happen. And I'm happy to admit it. Did not happen. So now the question is this supposed to forward an issue between Collins and Jinx? Is this opening up another, quote, problem to manifest? And it didn't feel like they had any issues because we didn't see anything take place following this. But as I stated at the beginning of it, there is an open window. There's the opportunity for them to go in and have Collins and Jinx have problems, which then would lead towards or harken back to the foreshadowing of the commentators and the foreshadowing of the promos like, oh, we don't have any problems. We're fine. We're just taking a break or what. That would be my only issue if that is where it goes. You can see or you can hear the running theme here. It would have been nice if that was something that we had saw. If we already began to see the cracks in their relationship previous to that. If we saw, I don't know, the camera happened to catch them out in the parking lot having a little bit of a tiff or an argument or a heated discussion. We don't want to go into full-blown argument. Or during the match, say Jinx is distracted. She's looking at or yelling at somebody in the audience, and while Collins is like, hey, tag me. Something to help illustrate the point that they were not on the same page and not quite as smooth as they were. If those things had happened, the promos that we saw would have made a lot more sense rather than them just coming out of the blue and, oh, yeah, we're doing fine with each other. We're just, I'm just doing this thing and she's doing her thing, and then we got back together. Because they're telling this thing on camera, the commentators, they reunited like there was already a problem that was already in place or they'd been separate of each other somehow. But, now I shouldn't say that there was a problem in play because they actually recapped that their quote was not a problem. So time will tell and we will see. Next segment, commentary booth is with cameras on the commentators at the commentator booth, and they pitch to the promo. So we got words from Samantha Smart and Tormenta. They cut to Samantha Smart as she cuts a promo while the Classmaster stands around making faces, flipping through the book, and doing nothing. Like, it's always this. It is always this. She never says anything. And then the promo sounded memorized. You would think that at least here, she might have had words for her opponent. Maybe. But it was just another Samantha Smart promo that really didn't help the situation here for the audience. It didn't put, in my opinion, it didn't put anything over of any significant degree. She being Samantha Smart, speaks, as I have noted, with conviction. But there are times when the conviction doesn't mask that it's a baseless promo. promo that she had coming out like a week ago, where it was just, we walk out here and said something about dogs at a dinner table, and we're smarter than them, we're smarter than you, we're smarter than everybody. It was like it was a baseless promo. It had nothing to it, didn't deliver anything, didn't talk about anything. It was just there. Here was a little closer to addressing the main event and whatever's going on. But if ever there was a time that you should have heard from the Classmaster, this was that time. We should have heard from her. It should have felt more important. WOW's production here felt like they were trying to make it more important. It just didn't fully go that direction. The next half of this is Tormenta as she's walking backstage. And she comes across Sophia Lopez. And the two of them, speaking to each other in Spanish, have a conversation. Normally, especially when they're doing the promo, getting out in front of the camera in the ring with a microphone and they're addressing the audience, normally I would say you'd want somebody there to translate it, or you don't want that to be the final word or whatnot. But this little segment between the two of them, Tormenta and Lopez, it felt more genuine than most other things we see on the show. This was Sophia coming up to her as her friend, essentially giving her support and giving her well wishes going into the match. And Tormenta kind of reciprocated that. They hug. Lopez tells her, go out there, go win. This is one of the nicest points of the show. I mean, truly, it was one of the nicest / most genuine segments I've ever seen in a while. Even if it wasn't genuine, it felt that way. It felt like two people, one trying to support the other. And it didn't feel phony or fake or like, I got to play this character. I'm the greatest attorney. It didn't feel like Sophia Lopez, greatest attorney in the world. It didn't feel like that. It felt like Sophia Lopez, my friend. And that's what it needed. The next segment, Paola Mayfield, which I was surprised she was speaking on her own. She cuts a heel promo. It wasn't polished, but it didn't need to be. However, I was questioning a few things. One, where's Abilene Maverick? Two, where's Mayfield's neck brace? Was this injury angle supposed to go somewhere where they started with, what was that, an episode ago? Comes out, my neck's hurt, the meteor caused this for me, and we're going to try to get that thing banned. And now there's nothing. There's no neck braces. There was no acknowledgement of it. There wasn't even, and I'll get even with you too, Tormenta, or I'll see to it you don't win. None of that happened. So my questions that I was writing is like, well, what was that injury angle about? Are they going to even bother to follow up? Is it supposed to continue? It would not surprise me if they just turned around and that was just gone and forgotten about. Which would only bring me back around to this show has its holes in it. It has massive holes. Holes that you could drive a truck through, not just poke holes in. They're huge. And things like this only further illustrate how huge those holes are. They don't do something to talk about the neck brace at some point or justify why she's out of it or even acknowledge it. Then what was it for in the first place? Why did she need to get out of this match with Princess Aussie just to get out of it? And speaking of Mayfield, and I'm assuming English is her second language, but she, as I just stated, not polished, but it was fine. She has her style, and it works for her. She probably should have had Abilene as a compliment to her promo so she could reel her in and really punctuate the point. But for whatever reason, Abilene Maverick was missing here, so who knows. But I don't know. I mean, as I was about to say, speaking of Mayfield, whatever happened to her attacking Santana Garrett? Never brought up again. Not mentioned. We haven't even seen Santana Garrett try to get her. I mean, maybe she'll do it 2 or 3 weeks from now when it's like, God finally found you. But there's a lot of that happening. And wow, just the inconsistency of the ideas and the inconsistency of the direction. And whether or not this thing is actually moving in the direction that they set up is an entirely different thing altogether. I actually wrote this down because this commercial came on after it. I said the Progressive commercial does a better job of telling the story in 30 seconds than WOW does in several segments. And it was the truth. If you ever seen the little Progressive commercial with Moira, which they're basically painting a picture that she's stalkerish. Man, you know, of course they don't go too far in the commercial, but she's like, every time this woman who's just moved in turns around, she's standing there or she's cleaning the window or standing with a fire extinguisher. And then they get to the punchline like, hey, look, I know you're trying to help me out, but all that stuff is creepy. And then she backs out of the bathroom. She's like, oh, yeah, okay, I understand. I'll do anything for you, Mara. Or whatever, Emily. And she's like, still creepy. But within them 30 seconds, you got the point. I have no idea where Mayfield is going with some of this stuff. And she had more time to tell it. Next segment is the preview for the number 1 contenders match between Animal Instinct and Miami Sweet Heat. I wrote, why is this happening? Animal Instinct just lost. They just lost to the Mighty Mites. Why are they in a number 1 contendership at all? Do they not have any other tag teams that could slot themselves into that? That would make more sense. Would not Daisy Lane and Chainsaw be more in line of getting a tag team title shot than Animal Instinct? They've been winning. And are they that starved for tag teams that they don't have anyone? This is another reason just to take a shot at top tier. This is another reason why doing that trios division for the division that they're the only ones in is the reason why that was stupid to begin with. Because they could have been in there. They could have been the team that was going against Miami Sweet Heat. They could have. They're not, but they could have. Then you got people that are just absent, so they just decimated the team. Foxy ain't there. Terror Strike ain't there. Mother Truckers don't exist. They've been split. There's no Los Banditos. I mean, you know, whatever teams that they had, at one point in time, you could have argued that they had the better tag team division just across the board. Now, I'm like, maybe not so much. So much has happened to just wreak havoc on that tag team division that I don't think that would be an appropriate assessment of their roster right now. And then we go to the main event. The main event is Tormenta taking on a Classmaster with Samantha Smart. The narrative that these commentators tell is that Tormenta's been trying to get this shot for 2 years. I will repeat, when they present it like that, it makes it sound like she never had a shot already. She's had several shots already, and they didn't really do a lot of build-up to get you interested in her winning this, or even the attempt of winning this. I realized that she's not going to get up on the microphone and cut some promo and bring everybody in. But if she had 2 to 3 months, if they knew what their final destination was, if she had 2 or 3 months to try to be positioned as the undisputed number one contender, winning matches, winning battle royals or tournaments or four-ways or, whatever things, obstacles that could be tossed in her way till she finally got it, it might have served a little differently. Here is just, she's been trying to get this shot for 2 years, but all I think about is the multiple times that she's challenged for the championship, including the Beast and Ozzy. Who came after that? I think it was she definitely was in the Battle Royal. But did she wrestle against Classmaster? It's been one other champion that she's defended against because she lost clean. And those things, as well as they were for matches for her, the fact of the matter is that if you have a long-term memory for a while, you know that this is not some one-off. This is not her, oh my gosh, she's finally getting a chance. No, she's had chances. It could have been framed differently. It's not about the amount of chances that she got, but it could have been framed differently to where, the story plays out and she scratches and claws and gets her opportunity to finally go after the title, which is what they were trying to do, but this happened so short and it has so little heat on it. It's really hard to care. Classmaster does what the Classmaster does, comes out with a book and pointing at her head with the cap and gown and looking silly, just like normal. They try to sell the WOW Championship as being this most prestigious championship. I at least like that Zayn says that in relation to it being the most prestigious championship in WOW. He didn't go around, well, he said it once or twice, but he didn't go around declaring it like, well, it's the most prestigious women's championship in all of sports. That would just be a bridge too far. But he did try and get this thing over as best as he could with, it's the most prestigious championship in WOW. And that's the best way that it could be phrased. And Zayn, I don't know if he was instructed to do it. I'm just going to assume that he's just trying to make the best of it. It kind of reminds me of how I felt about championships on the indies. It became a pet peeve of mine because almost every indie promotion would do that. It's our world's championship. It's like, why is this a world's championship? You don't defend this thing outside of this one building in this little tiny region of the country. Well, it's similar here. Like, it's hard for me to regard that as a world's championship when it largely is just defended in the Belasco or this TV studio. Maybe it'll go to Las Vegas. But aside from that, it's like it's not a world's title. I'm sorry, it ain't. So anyhow, the commentators do what the commentators do. They sell the Classmaster as being 6'2", which is, she needs another definitive quality about herself beyond being tall. Her manager's tall, which is why I never liked the idea of them being a pair. And I know the only reason that they are is because Classmaster is willing to be in the schoolgirl outfit to justify them being together. Since I'm wearing this, we got to be paired off together. The commentators also bring up Tormenta being a former Mexican champion of some unnamed promotion with an unnamed belt that we never saw. This was it's a fine match, but I'll be honest, it's a little difficult watching this match knowing that it was supposed to be like their blow-off and like it was supposed to be a big deal. after having seen matches that were big deals and had a big feel to them. It was a little difficult coming back to this. The ref stands around waving his arms at one point when Classmaster Tormenta get on the outside. Classmaster gives a suplex to Tormenta on the outside. And as this is going on, somewhere in this, McClain says, if the match goes over, fans, you'll have to go to YouTube and watch the rest. I was like, this never happens. Why does he continue to say this? That was my comment. It never happens. Why are you talking about this? When have they not accomplished having a match within the parameters of television? If they didn't every once in a while, I can see that. But I just don't see where that has ever taken place, and I don't see where it's ever going to take place. It sounds good to say it. It's kind of like back in the day when Tony Schiavone said, we're running out of time. The tape machines are running. It's kind of like that. We'll bring it to you next week, fans. They're still going in there. If that were the case, if that had happened on the WOW, if they had a match that would exceeded the time limit, so to speak, then yeah, he should say that. But it's been over 20 years. Granted, 13 of those are non-existent WOW years. So take some of this with a grain of salt. But it's been 20 years. If we want to just remove that, then we'll just say 7 or 8. Because I think we're moving past that point now. But that has never happened. It has never happened. So I don't know why he's pushing it like it would have. Because it can't and it won't. So we get to the end of the match. Smart breaks a yardstick across Tormenta's back. This sets Tormenta up for a DDT by the Classmaster. And she gets a 1, she gets a 2, Tormenta kicks out. And it's, oh, wow, she kicked out of I can't believe it. This incredible match. I probably would have felt a little stronger about that if the DDT had been established as something that would finish the match for the Classmaster. But since she always has some different fit, whether it's the big boot, whether it's the expulsion, when she flip him over top of her shoulders, whether it was a choke slam, she's had like multiple finishers, none of which have been educated to the audience that when I hit you with this thing, you're done. And this was not something that had been established. I think she won with a DDT before, but it's not like somebody else hadn't kicked out. I think Santana Garrett kicked out of the DDT. It's not her finish. It's not the end-all, be-all move from the Classmaster. So I didn't get that sense of, oh, wow, she just did it. Which reminds me, oh, my, I think I asked this before, is that supposed to be David McClain's catchphrase? It's 4 words/lines that they did throughout the entirety of this show that just drove me up the damn wall. Oh my goodness. Nigel, David, those things especially the names, they just felt like they were on repeat, and I just heard it so crisp and repeatedly so much. I was having a hard time taking it. I really was. I was ready to reach through that goddamn screen and say, shut the fuck up about calling each other's names. Jesus, I don't think you say that. You probably don't call your girlfriend's name that much when y'all laying up together. And I wish I could explain why it just got under my skin, that particular episode, but it got under my skin so bad. Anyhow, that was a little sidebar. So, after the DDT, we get to the point where Tormenta goes up to the top rope. And for whatever reason, Classmaster is asking for the book while her opponent's climbing up the rope. You can see her like tapping him out, like as if to say, "Hey, give me the book," right? So the ref gets distracted. We don't see that because it's off camera. The book gets slid in, and then off the top rope and drop kick. She gets caught. She being the Classmaster 1, 2, 3, and Tormenta wins the championship. My first and honest instinctive question was, what was that book supposed to do? Under what circumstances would that book have been useful? And we, much like the DDT, we've not established that thing as a weapon. It's more like an incidental object. Incidental being that she would lay it on the mat and then just throw somebody on it with her finish, which, like, well, why don't you just do the finish? Does the book really add that much to it? So it's like, what is it that she's supposed to be doing with this thing? She's not laying on the mat. You weren't going to catch her. What does sliding the book into the ring and her getting a hold of it and standing up help make happen, or would have helped make happen, that just rolling out of the way wouldn't have done? Or running over there to the turnbuckles to try to throw off. Like, how is that supposed to be any better than either one of those options? I mean, I realize that I'm just simple folk and they're geniuses and whatnot, but how is that supposed to help anything? Now, I got the idea that it was probably largely supposed to be some variation of a Van Daminator, but we didn't even really see that because of the camera angle, so you can't even sell that part of it. That she drop kicked it and drop kicked the book and smack herself in the face or something like that. It was just, let's just call it for what it was. It was just a worthless angle. I mean, it'd have been better served if it was a steel chair. And then Tormenta comes off and there's a drop kick and she smacks the chair and makes her hit herself in the head and knocks her out. As it is with that book, I mean, the book was just stupid. Yeah, I get it. That's supposed to be their gimmick, but it was just so stupid. There's nothing that book would have done if she hadn't come off the top rope. Now, if we had seen her use that thing and wallop a couple of people across the back and knock them out, or, you know, if that had happened, that probably would have changed the perception of it. But that's never happened. It was never treated like a weapon. It was just incidental. Slide it in, put it on the mat, and DDT him on top of it, or slam me on top of it. I was like, well, okay. This is not the weapon that it needs to be. And truthfully, had they started using it as a weapon, they probably could have gotten that thing over for the audience. Because if it was big enough and she hit somebody in the back hard enough, it would have sounded off and it would have had a great audio. It would have had great audio for the audience. But that didn't happen. That's neither here nor there. We can assume that the dropkick drove the book into her face or something along those lines. Knocked her out. Tormenta got the win. 1, 2, 3. It was nice to see her win. And it was nice for the confetti and her holding the championship belt up and everything. But I'll be honest, didn't feel special to me. It didn't feel like some sort of great accomplishment. It felt like what a normal WOW thing is. They won. And we just happen to have the confetti ready to go for you. So, that was it. That was the review of WOW Women of Wrestling and Tormenta finally gaining the championship. Now, having done that, I will go ahead and polish this up. You know why? Because there is no preview for the next month. I mean, not month, but week. I did this episode, well, recorded this episode, as I said before, Slammiversary just went off. It's still Sunday night right now. They usually send the press for WOW about Wednesday or Thursday. But since I am doing this ahead of what my normal schedule would be, since I took a little break and I'm off and I'm home, I decided, you know what, why wait? Why wait until we get to the weekend and try to crank this thing out when I can just go ahead, do it now, put it in my hard drive and have it edited and ready to go for upload a little sooner than normal. So I have no idea what it's supposed to be in the next episodes of WOW like I would typically get or try to read through. Maybe if I get it, a couple of days from now, I'll just put up a separate one, but or at least a separate post. But outside of that, no, I'm a little off on it, and I have no clue what's going on or going up next. Other than the match that we all know has happened. Reina Del Rey getting a championship shot, and apparently Animal Instinct going against Miami Sweet Heat. So there we have it. And that'll do it, folks. That will be the show. Please, if you're on YouTube, do the YouTube stuff. Like, share, and subscribe it. Helps out a lot. Helps that algorithm and all that good stuff. Leave comments. If you have a comment to share, I appreciate the ones that I've gotten. And also, quick reminders, Zentara has a review available on every episode. So if you're not even wanting to hear me, you could go down into the comment section and you could read a full-on review. It's like getting a free article right there for the reviews. And thank you for that. Thank you very much for that. I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate you being willing to share it on my podcast page. And I hope for those of you that do take the time to read it, give it a like. Give it a like, read it through, give it a like, share some comments, start a conversation. So yeah, do the YouTube stuff, like, share, subscribe. If you're listening to this in audio format or you want to listen to it in audio format, it is available on great podcast platforms everywhere. If you don't know where to find any of this stuff, well, you know what you can do. You can go to WPNWrestling.com and you can get all that good stuff in one central location. A 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week stream of videos that I've shot personally dating back to 2013. I think one or two of them even beyond that now when I went through my channel, some videos. So you got a couple of them that exceed that time. And every podcast that gets uploaded also drops there. It is in chronological order, I think, for the most part. It might be one that's out of sequence, but other than that, if you're just looking to see how many of these I've done, I mean, really go through and see how many I've done, you go right there to that homepage, scroll down, and get to that Podbean widget. You can see all those episodes just lined up in a row right there. It is hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of content. Including the stream, it is really hours and hours and hours of content. We got a lot of stuff there. Probably more than I ever thought I would be capable of producing, but I did, and here it is. So, having given you that, I think we can all rest easy and wait for the next episodes of WOW to pop in and see whether that's going to go anywhere. And I guess I should address one small concern before I leave, and that is that the CBS station, or let me rewind here, the CBS affiliate station that airs WOW currently in Atlanta is going through a change. It is now no longer going to be an affiliate. It is going to be a CBS primary station. It's going to be part of the main network. So that being the case, I don't know whether they're going to do a wholesale flip over of content and programming or whether they're going to split it, because it is a syndicated show and it could theoretically air, say, on CBS at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that. But they've always have stuff that's on their channel at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, even no matter what market I looked at. It's always there. So I bring that up to say that there is the possibility that WOW may not be in the Atlanta market any longer. But we will see. I think it will was it August? I think they're going to turn that over. So I got a couple of weeks. I'll see if they release any news about it. We talked about it at the job. For those who don't know, I work in a television hub. But we've talked about it there, and not necessarily for the sake of WOW, but that channel is going to be changing and changing relatively soon. So we will see where that goes and how that will affect viewing habits and how that will affect, more importantly, as it relates to this podcast, that show. So time will tell. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your time, effort. I appreciate it all. Comments, thumbs up, votes, listens. I appreciate every single bit of it. And on that note, time for the close. That this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.